bins at the polling locations on election day. We are working towards finalizing those results to publish to the website and to provide the information to the Secretary of State's website as required by the statute. Our staff has been working tirelessly since 7 p.m., 8 p.m. last night. We're covering some good ground. We have about 1,200 more mail-in ballots that we need to process, maybe 1,200 to 1,400 that we need to process to finalize the total tabulation process. We have a good number of provisional ballots that were cast at the election day vote centers on election day. Some of those provisional ballots were cast before 7 p.m. and by some voters who were standing in line at 7 p.m. And as you know, some of those ballots, provisional ballots, were cast by voters who got in line after the court-ordered extension of the polling places to extending the hours from 7 p.m. until 8 p.m. I can tell you now that I do not have an exact count of the number of those 7 to 8 p.m. provisional ballots. The team is working on that as we speak. And the reason that we don't have that is that we've been focusing on the results that we know we're able to tabulate and push to the Secretary of State's website as required. As we indicated last night, we had over 1 million plus voters vote during this general election cycle. We're very excited about that. We opened 782 polling locations on election day. We had a mishap at one of the locations that required the facility to be shut down. It wasn't an elections-related mishap, but it was an issue that required the facility to be shut down, and I believe the city of Houston will be providing some information on what that emergency issue was if they haven't already. We will continue to process the emergency slot ballots today, the mail-in ballots with the ballot board tonight, and we will assess our election operations from early voting through election night through today. And I'll answer any questions that you have and be glad to provide as much information as I can.
I'd like to talk to you, Mr. Administrator, about the polling sites that reported ballot shortages. Was it a supply issue? Was it poor planning? How could this office fumble something that is seemingly so simple?
Well, there wasn't a fumble. I can tell you that we started receiving calls for ballot paper at 7:30 a.m. 7:30. So for me, I have to assess exactly what was going on at those polling places that they felt they needed paper when the polls opened at 30 minutes, 7 o'clock, 7:30. So I'm not sure what we were seeing. I'm not sure what we're seeing. So I need to really assess what's going on. Now, I do know that we sent paper out to locations. I know that we had technicians take paper out to locations. I need to understand why initially the workers didn't believe they had the numbers of paper that they needed, and then determine, did we give them the right amount of paper? Did we misallocate? That's what I will assess.
Let me ask a follow-up on that. How does the process work to determine the allotment for each voting center?
Well, we go
based on historical data, and if so, in so many hotly contested races, why not put some pad in there? Why not put a buffer?
I'm going to assess that. That's why I'm here, is to understand our operations, understand how we do what we do and why we do what we do, and based on what I ascertain, I would make some recommendations to our staff, to our operations, to the court, to the Elections Commission about the resources, the systems that we may need from top to bottom.
And was the execution acceptable in your opinion?
Well, we delivered paper to polling locations that requested paper. we know that there were some voters who were standing in line waiting for paper to get there. We got the paper there. Would I have preferred paper to be there in the beginning? Certainly. So I think paper was there in the beginning. I know that every judge that came in and picked up their supplies on election day received the weekend before election day received paper. I was here at supply handout the entire supply handout process, so I know that we provided our judges with paper. I just need to understand what happened.
On the ballots between 7 and 8 provisional ballots that caused confusion yesterday, I know you said you didn't have the exact numbers. Do you have a ballpark? Are we talking about several hundred or several thousand? And would it be fair to say, given what's happened in the elections and the concessions and things like that's happened, that no matter whether or not that's counted, that at the end it probably would it make an impact? Does applicants make an impact in the outcomes?
So that's a fair question, and I think you've learned from me that what I don't like to do is speculate. But I can tell you that we don't have thousands of provisional ballots from the elections day in general. I can tell you that. So without speculating and tying us to a number, do we have 3,000 provisional ballots? I don't believe we do. So if we factor out the number of standard provisional ballots, then that leaves us the rest. And we'll get you that number. I just don't want to speculate, but I don't believe there's enough provisional ballots that would upset any particular races as they stand right now.
And are you aware of whether or not this renders that legal maneuver moot, or will your office be sued more? Or
I can't speculate to that. I simply will. I'll leave that to the county attorneys to handle the legal issues and the like.
We spoke to 2 different election judges who said that they had technical issues with the machines, saying that they were overheating, they were not working properly. How many reports did you get of that, and how long was the timeline to get those issues resolved?
So we did receive reports from our judges at some locations that were having machine problems. We saw that there were some scanner problems. The scanner is the device that actually takes an image of the ballot and records the ballot. We saw that there were some duo problems. The duo is a device where the voter actually makes their selections and prints their selections onto the ballot. We saw that there were some ballot jams. And for each of those situations, we dispatched a technician. We had over 180 plus technicians in the field for election day. And we were able to resolve a good number of those issues. Some controllers we actually had to take out of commission, which of course then means that there's a particular line of duos that aren't working, and we're working with our vendor. We've communicated, our vendor was on site for election day. We communicated what those issues are, what we were seeing, and they're going to be assessing their equipment to determine what may have caused those particular issues for those particular devices.
When we say some, can you give us a ballpark number? 784 locations. Are we talking a dozen here, 2, 100? How many locations saw issues, would you say, that your office received?
And because we're in the middle of tabulating our results right now, I don't have exact numbers because we're focusing on tabulating our results now. But through our assessment, we will look at every polling location, who had issues, who didn't have issues, why some polling locations seem to function without any issues whatsoever, and why some locations had issues, repeat issues. And so we'll take a look at that.
Administrator, you talked about the emergency slot ballots that are being tabulated today. First of all, how many of those are there? And second of all, what exactly does that mean? Are these like paper jams that weren't able to be read, kind of similar to what happened in March, or what exactly is that?
So the way the system works, the duo prints the voter selections onto 2 sheets of 8.5 by 14 paper. And what we've seen in some instances is that the wording, the ballot selections are skewed so that the scanner doesn't actually can't read the language. So when the scanner can't read the image, it kicks it out. And so there's a couple of ways that can be resolved. We'd like to resolve that at the polling location and allow the voter to spoil the ballot and cast another ballot that reads properly and submit their ballot through the scanner. But if they don't do that, then that sheet of paper is then inserted into what we call the emergency slot. Those ballots then come down to central count, and the ballot board works through duplicating that ballot so that it can be read through the scanner. So that's what we're doing on this side. The ballot board has been duplicating those ballots, and I don't know an exact number, but as we read them through, we'll get an exact number so that that will be included in the report itself.
You run other large elections, and I guess this is your first big election here in Harris County. We've always seemed to have problems preceding you for whatever reasons. It just feels like for voters that Harris County is somehow is always late and sort of always has issues. How much of that, having just been here a short time, do you see where is that problem? What can your office or the board do to improve that experience for voters? These machines that were bought before you got hired, do you think they have problems with training, or like where is the issue?
So I can tell you as an elections administrator from different jurisdictions and working with my colleagues across the nation that every election, no matter what jurisdiction, no matter the size, has some sort of problem on election day, without fail. We know we strive for perfection, but we know there's never a perfect election. So the question becomes the scale. So a small election, a small county that might have 50 polling locations that has one or two machines that have a problem seems like a very small problem. A large jurisdiction with 782 polling locations with 2 or 3 machines at each of those locations that goes down becomes a big problem because we're such a big county. And one of my friends here has described Harris County as a big and complicated county. And it is a big and complicated county. And so I say that to say, not to diminish the fact that we have some issues. I will also say that we are under from the outside looking in and now being in the fishbowl, the county's under a tremendous amount of scrutiny. And so issues that are occurring in other jurisdictions that are similar to what we're incurring are magnified to another level. And I'm assessing that. And I'm talking with our staff about the issues that we've encountered in the past, the issues that we encountered for this election, and to determine what caused those issues, what worked, what didn't work, and then how do we resolve the issues that didn't work so that they don't occur again. So for every election, we'll see problems. I just have to encourage and reinforce to our voters that the problems should not impact their ability to cast a ballot, and that's the rub. So as I have voters standing in line that's waiting for a paper as the claim is made, I have to take that to heart and determine exactly what was that, what caused that, and then ensure that that doesn't happen again. So then going down the road to the next election, I may have a machine that does something entirely different. It just happens. But because we're such a large jurisdiction with the numbers that we have, it's magnified and it looks a little different than some of the other jurisdictions.
Outside pressure, are you talking about the fact that the Republican-controlled state office paying more attention to Harris County? This is the biggest Democratic-leaning county. Is that political pressure, or are you talking about some other sort of fishbowl pressure?
No political pressure from the Secretary of State that I'm aware of. I've met the Secretary of State. I know the Executive Director from previous dealings as an elections administrator. And so I've received the support that they've offered, and I understand the support that they've offered. And I also understand that there's advocacy groups that have different interests as it relates to voting in Harris County. So whenever anything goes wrong, everyone has a concern. So everyone expresses that concern in their own way, and those are the pressures that I'm referring to. I don't believe I'm feeling any political pressure. I'm an elections administrator. So my job, as I've explained to both parties, is to conduct the election. And the politics fall where the politics may for them. But for me, I manage the elections process. And that's all I focus on. Of course, I have to pay attention to the rules and the laws. And if laws are changed. But I focus on the administrative side. I don't pay attention to the political side.
I want to go back to the question about the paper supply. You said some locations started asking for paper within 30 minutes of opening, and there's some sort of question from y'all's part about why these places are running out of paper. Are you suggesting that that's not a simple ask to ask for more supplies, regardless of what time it was of the day?
I'm not suggesting anything to that regard. What I'm saying is I want to assess what that is, because here's what happens. Because we have a finite amount of resources related to any technical issues that may occur at a polling place, if I have a polling location that we know didn't open on time because it had some sort of technical issues, if I'm sending a technician somewhere to deliver paper that may be needed later in the day, then that technician is not on site managing that machine that's gone down. So you have to prioritize the technical issues that you have in order to get every polling location up and running. So the request for paper is not, I'm not diminishing that request for paper, but there's a priority to what's the priority at that moment in time to get someone what they need to make sure that voters are voting. That's all I'm saying. So at 7 a.m., 7:30 a.m., I don't feel the pressure to get someone paper when I know that there's 3 or 4 locations that haven't opened on time, and I need to get technicians there. Now, I have 180 plus technicians, and I have 782 locations. So, as I say, I'm going to assess, and it may be that I'll ask for more technicians so that I have a larger pool of technicians that are then covering just that fewer number of polling locations to their specific territory.
We talked to 3 judges who say they call here with ample notice, hours ahead of time when paper supplies were running low and turnout appeared to be high. And they said they either were placed on hold for 20, 30, 40 minutes, or their pleas were delayed or slow-rolled or ignored. Setting aside the whole morning thing, these are judges pleading for help, and they say help didn't arrive.
Well, as I indicated, I'm going to look at that. I'm going to understand what that was and why help didn't arrive, because as I understand it, we dispatched paper. So I'll take a look at that.
By the way, did you change vendors, paper vendors recently in Harris County?
No,
Okay. And was there a supply issue? Did you
No.
have enough here?
no, I have millions of pages of paper.
On the emergency stuff, how many requests for paper have you received?
No, I do not.
Do you know how many of the 782 locations your technicians visited?
That's what we will assess through in our after action report. So because I'm not digging into that now, I can't answer that question. We're tabulating.
The other thing, when will you dig into that?
After we finish tabulating, then we'll turn our attention to what worked and what didn't work.
So is there a log somewhere of all of those requests that will then be like how is it that you're going to dig into it after you?
I'm going to reach out to my call center. So the judges call into a call center line,
Right.
and those calls are then forwarded to a technician. So I'll be taking a look at all of that.
Are they logged?
I'll have to look into that.
What's the timeline for that report?
That I'm not sure. It's a full assessment from top to bottom. So I'm not going to limit myself on how much time I need to assess, but that's what I'll be doing is assessing.
How many locations had to close early because of issues?
Pardon me?
Open late. How many locations had to close early or open late because of issues?
To my understanding, we had 4 locations that opened late.
None closed early?
Not that I'm aware of, except, one location closed because of an emergency outside of the elections realm.
Mr. On the emergency slot ballots, you mentioned that they have been kind of misprinted, I guess, in a way that they couldn't be read. Was that an issue with the machines, or was that voter error? What causes that?
Thank you for the question. We've been working with the vendor to determine exactly what's causing that paper skew, and there's a couple of different things. If as the paper is fed into the printer, if the voter attempts to feed the paper into the printer, the second page into the printer before the first page completes printing, it may cause a jam. But we've also seen where the first page reads in and it skews, and we're not certain if the voter is holding on to the paper as it's being pulled into the printer. So we're just assessing what's going on in the field, and we're going to be talking with the vendor in great detail about how we resolve these sort of issues, because at the end of the day, the system has to serve whatever voter steps into the booth, however they propose to vote.
And I believe at the beginning you mentioned, I think, 1,200 to 1,400 votes that you're still waiting on. Does that include mail ballots requested, military, overseas, all the ones that?
That is correct. Yeah, we're processing mail ballots.
And that is different from, there are 1,200 to 1,400 processed mail ballots, overseas ballots, but then we don't know the provisional number. Like I'm trying to divide that. How many ballots do you have left to count?
I have mail ballots that have been ran through my Agilus sorter that tells me how many ballots I have that my people are, that the SVC is current, that the ballot board is currently verifying signatures on.
Right.
So that's why I know that number. I have provisional ballots that I have clerks that are processing by hand, because that's the way they're processed. I don't know that number, but I will get that number, and I will share that number with you, because I understand you're interested in that number. And so I can't say I have a total number. I'm sure someone on my team knows that. I don't know that standing here.
Do you know there is a certain number of provisions, like each of the 782 polling locations would theoretically have provisional ballots. Am I understanding that correctly?
Say that again.
782 polling locations, it is likely that all of them have some form of provisional ballot.
That's fair.
Wow.
That's fair.
Do you know how many of those 782 locations you have worked your way through?
No, I don't.
Cool.
Okay.
And Administrator, when do you expect to hear from the courts on whether you can count those provisional ballots that were cast after 7 o'clock?
I'll wait for the county attorney to advise me. I'm not paying attention to that until the county attorney advises me.
What's your message to voters who may have had a difficult time or may be feeling a little frustrated today, or poll workers who volunteered time as part of this process who we spoke to a couple who are obviously frustrated? What's your message to them?
Thank you for the question. We always want our voters to have a wonderful experience when turning out to vote. And it's our goal to ensure that they have access to the polling location, and that the machines are working, and that they're able to cast their ballot as they've chosen to, and that we count that ballot. So for those voters who had a frustrating moment, I'd ask to think of any other moments that they've had, well, frustrating moments, and how they push through those and they continue on to the next opportunity. So don't turn your back on voting. Voting is important. We need you to vote. Harris County needs you to vote. Harris County needs you to represent. And that's my message to the voters. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Administrator.